Today we're going to take another look at a mediation case with permission from the parties, and also look at different styles of communication and conflict management, so you can get an idea of how you might be able to take a conflict in your life and make it dissolve and go away without having to go through a lot of heartache. This case was about a wedding that was going to take place between two young people who had been engaged for a couple years, and they were planning their wedding, and both sets of parents had different ideas of how to do this wedding, and that's where the conflict came from. The bride's parents wanted a very low-key, down-to-earth, kind of casual wedding. Decent amount of people. They wanted 100, 150 people to attend, but they wanted kind of a more quaint, kind of rustic and style of wedding, close to home. It was the venue they came up with was kind of an outdoor setting amongst the trees, some tables outside, not really formal, with not a huge amount of budget for entertainment or drinks and that kind of a thing. And the groom's parents wanted something much more elaborate. It was an indoor setting with a live band and a DJ. Actually, less people. They only wanted about 100 people, but they wanted a much more formal, upscale event. It was a little bit farther away. It was going to be about an hour to an hour and a half for most of the attendees that were local. Obviously, some people traveled. And it was a point of contention because it wasn't so much about the number of people or even the budget, because the budgets were kind of similar. It was more about the style of the wedding. And the two people getting married, God bless them, they were having a difficult time connecting their parents with one idea or another. And in fact, the people who were getting married, the bride and the groom, they couldn't care less of which one it was. They both were okay with either one of those styles of wedding. They both would have been perfectly happy with each one of those. So it wasn't that they had a choice. They couldn't get their parents to agree on them. And it was starting to create some conflict between them because they had to stick up for their own parents. So how do we get involved? Well, fortunately, the sister of the groom wanted to resolve this, and she was kind of caught in the middle because she was in the wedding party and she was seeing this conflict happen and seeing how it was affecting her brother. So she suggested a mediation, and while the parties originally didn't think this was a thing you needed mediation for, she saw in advance that it was going south very, very quickly. So we got involved and we talked to the parties. Now, as we always do, we talk to each side separately first, so there's not that biased or skewed conversation. We get a really true, authentic description of what the parties are trying to accomplish. So first we talked to the groom's parents, and they reiterated they want this lavish wedding, and there was this venue that they really had their heart set on and their hope set on. It was going to be very gourmet food preparation and delivery. They even had a method of delivering the food where all the waitstaff marched out with these covered platters with metal covers on it, and they put it on the table and very dramatically pull it off the plate, and they deliver your food. And there was going to be a live band, and there was going to be all kind of accoutrements that go along with that type of a style. And as I had the parties, or this couple, the groom's parents, describe it, I told them to imagine, what is it going to be like? What's it going to look like? What is an attendee of this wedding going to see? What are they going to feel? What is it going to be like for them? Because that's really what I had a sense was happening. They wanted their guests to feel a certain way about this wedding. Oh, they're going to be so impressed. They're going to be so blown away by how elaborate and lavish this wedding is. Quite frankly, a lot of the description was about the wedding itself and the event. Very little of the conversation was about the couple getting married. It wasn't about the marriage, it was about the wedding event. And I pried a little bit and I said, well, how do you feel about them getting married? Oh, we love, the other person, the wife, we love her. She's like our daughter. We really think the world of her. We really love to see her have a great wedding event too. So they were kind of projecting also their desires about this wedding event onto the bride. So we kind of ended that conversation, and then I made an appointment to talk to the bride's parents. Well, what do you think? Well, it'd just be really nice for them to have this event and to have the guests have this great experience of this quaint kind of shabby chic event, with maybe lace covers on wooden tables outside under the trees with some lights in the trees, and have this really unique, stylized, artistic type of event. Same thing. They were also keying in on the guest experience. Well, what do you think about the marriage? Oh, we love so and so. He's a great husband for her. They're gonna have a great life together. So they both like the other, the spouse of their child. It wasn't that they had a problem with the person and they wanted to have a great marriage, but they were both keying in on the guests and wanting the guests to have a great experience. And so we circled back and had another conversation with both of them and asked, why do you want these guests to have such a great experience? Well, it's going to be a reflection on our son/daughter/couple. It's going to be a reflection on, they're going to remember this for the rest of their life and remember how great a couple they are. It's going to show them how great of a marriage this is going to be. So they both agreed on the reason they wanted this type of ceremony, this type of reception. It's because they wanted to imprint on the guests a reflection of this marriage as defined by the image of this wedding event. So there's your common ground. They both wanted the same thing for this couple. They just saw it in a different way. It wasn't they really had much different intentions. They wanted the guests to walk away from that thing and thinking, can you imagine how good of a marriage this is going to be based on the event? Now, I'm sure that most of you watching this are realizing that, the wedding event itself doesn't reflect at all on how good the marriage is going to be. That has to do with the people. Yeah, you want it to be a nice event, but the parents don't really have any control over that. They wanted to kind of send them off with this big event and have some influence on, maybe vicariously, how this event was going to go. So what do you do about this? So let's take a pause here and think about, if you were a mediator, or you were facilitating this conversation, what would you suggest to the parties, to the parents, to the couple, to try to resolve this? Think about that for a minute or two. I'm going to take a quick pause and see what you come up with. So put your messages below what you think would be the right answer is, and let's talk about how this case worked itself out. We did one more round of communications with the parties separately, and we also included the potential spouses themselves. What we told them was, as you know, your parents are trying to give you a great event for your guests and to send you off in life with a great marriage, but there's a difference in how they want to approach it. Knowing what you know about each one of your parents, what do you think would be a way to be able to get through to them to have them come to some common agreement? And the bride, she said, my parents want to have this casual event because that's kind of what they did when they got married, and they feel like, well, this is a good way to start a marriage, start a life together, and they want to try to model it after kind of what they did, and thinking that that's what I would like, which I kind of would, but I don't really care. What about the guy? And the groom said, well, my parents, they had a very casual wedding because they really didn't have as much money back then as they do now, and what they want to do is kind of prove their wealth and show off how they've come out in life, so their friends can see that they're sending off their son on a great marriage. So it was a little bit of a difference. Both parties actually had a very casual wedding when they got married, the parents, but the groom's parents came from a more humble background, so they wanted to maybe be a little more ostentatious with the wedding to kind of show off their newfound wealth. So what we did was we brought them all together and said, look, your children are off to a great start in life. They're going to have a great marriage, great life together. You want to have them be happy and all their guests be happy. And you both had a wedding that was very similar to each other. You know, you had your wedding 28 years ago, you had your wedding 32 years ago, and in reality, both of your weddings were very similar to each other. And look at the marriages you had. You're both still solid couples, you're both still together, you raise your children well, and wouldn't you like to have your children have the same kind of wedding you did, maybe with a few upgrades for maybe modern conveniences of life, or maybe more modern style? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each one of your children suggest something, and we'll see how this works. And the idea we had come up with, but we focused it and funneled it through the children. What we came up with was, why not have a casual wedding in the woods, in, you know, out in nature, but jazz it up a little bit. Maybe have the band, maybe have a little bit more flair for the food or gourmet food. We're not going to have the waiter with a tuxedo pulling the chrome cover off each plate, but maybe we'll hire an upgraded chef, maybe have a band, not a full, 10-piece brass band, maybe have a live band that's more suitable for outdoors. Maybe have it still be outside, but have some more luxury touches to it. And we had each one of those touches be described and presented by the bride and the groom to the parents, because they both really cared about what their children had to say. The key to the whole thing was finding that common ground. They both wanted their version of that wedding for the same reason. They wanted it to be a celebration and demonstration of those children as starting off in life with a great marriage. And that was what's going to help them be strong together. And they both had a common ground of having the same kind of previous wedding in their own personal lives. When both of those couples, those parents, got together and they had their wedding, it was very similar. It was casual. They weren't both outside, but they were very casual in how that wedding was. So we used that common ground, and we sprinkled in a few of the elements that were differences that, the bride's parents didn't object to some of those luxury things. They just didn't want it to be a big circus act and have it be too gaudy. And it was a perfect combination. In fact, having the children present that in that final meeting with all 6 people also brought the two parents closer together, the in-laws closer together, and they saw that their children were facilitating this coming together and solving this problem together, and that made them feel really good about these people being together. Look, we didn't solve the problem. All we did was we saw the common ground that already existed. The solution was already there. It's just that as a party to a conflict per se, and it wasn't really that much of a conflict, but a difference of opinion, sometimes you don't see the other side because you have that blind spot. And the people getting married, the bride and the groom, they didn't see it, not because they were stupid or because they weren't intelligent enough. It's because they were too busy planning a wedding. They had a lot of things going on in their life. They had work and obligations, so they didn't really have the ability to stand back and look through the forest, through the trees, to see that answer was right there staring them in the face. So all we have to do is see the answer, hand it to them on a silver platter, and they could be the solution. That is the best kind of mediation. And it was one that was very satisfying for us as a company to mediate those kind of things, and to see that the event turned out the way it did. And we got some feedback afterwards that the guests were very happy. Everybody loved the event itself. And having a solution that already exists makes it easier, because you don't have to try to force any kind of solution on somebody that's different than what they want, which is most of the time the answer is already there. You just have to dig it out from underneath all the complexities and the baggage that everybody has going into it. Let us know what your thoughts are on that.